Welcome to Higher Self Mastery. I'm your host, Erika. Thank you so much for being here with me today. So today I want to talk about higher self mastery. It's the first episode, so I thought that might be fitting. So what is the higher self? Well, the higher self is not the part of us that behaves the best or is the most accomplished or the most physically fit. I know that when you hear the best version of yourself, you might get a sense that that's what it's talking about. But actually, the best version of yourself is the self that is rooted in love. It's the self that has this sense of peace. It's the self, or you could also refer it to the inner being, that is really connected to the intuition. It sees the 100-foot view, or what I call the drone view, where it's not completely identified with the character that you're playing, Maria or Andrew or Erika. It's unconditioned. So it has this deep, neutral wisdom. And so when we are referring to higher self mastery, we're talking about getting better and better at connecting to the part of us that is the higher mind, the higher wisdom, the intuition, the part of us ultimately that cannot be destroyed. And when I say this, when I talk about this, I'm not talking about woo-woo spirituality here. I'm talking about science. Okay? Everything in the universe is energy. This is science. That means you are energy. I am energy. And the first rule in physics is that energy cannot be created or destroyed. Energy can only be transformed. And so, because energy cannot be destroyed or created, it is forever by nature existing. It exists. That's its nature. And it's eternal. So the higher self is the part of us that is eternally indestructible. And for that reason, it's patient. The Course in Miracles says, infinite patience creates immediate results. Everyone is in a rush to heal and to, be better or lose the weight or get the relationship or whatever it is they're trying to attain. And, they're forgetting that in the higher self, in the inner being, in the part of us that is eternal, there's no rush. There's no rush. It's like really, truly, what is the rush? And I tell my clients, lean into your eternal indestructibility. Like we have lifetimes to do this. So if you are overwhelmed, slow down. And don't forget the cosmic joke that in the end, every spiritual truth is a paradox. I used to study non-duality, and as a Course in Miracles teacher, I was really big on non-duality, but I have to tell you, after several ego deaths, including the spiritual ego death, which is totally a thing and I didn't know until it happened to me, and I was so completely identified with the spiritual Erika. I mean, as a spiritual coach and, Course in Miracles teacher, and I'm a minister, doing Sunday talks and all these things. And when the death of the spiritual ego occurred, that was the hardest one, because the alcoholic Erika, or the, people pleasing Erika, or the serial dating Erika, those are all Erikas that I was happy to see them go. I was like, oh, okay. They were hard. They were hard. I'm not going to lie. Each death, is challenging. But the spiritual ego death, wow. Because I was totally sold on a program of what spirituality looks like, what spirituality is. And the truth is that I was just putting myself in another box. Yeah, maybe not the 9-to-5 box, maybe not the the beauty culture box, all these other boxes I was in before. But I was in the spirituality box, and that meant that I needed to meditate, and I needed to eat a particular way, and I needed to do yoga, and read the Course in Miracles, and worship and praise all day. And I mean, when I tell you that all that I would listen to all day long was worship music, and all that I would watch were like sermons, or like, Joe Dispenza, or something spiritual. It's like, it was all that I was consumed with for years. And so this last ego death, the spiritual ego, was definitely the most difficult, because my ego believed that it was good because it was spiritual. And although I probably wouldn't admit this then, there was an aspect of me that thought, well, I'm better than others because I'm awakened, and because I teach non-duality, and because I know the truth, whatever that is. And so it's really just another identity for the ego. And I spent so many years, especially this last year, trying to dissolve the ego, or to disidentify with the personality self, the self-image self, Erika. And it just is impossible. Okay? I'm going to tell you the truth. If you are on the path of non-duality, more power to you. If you are in the process of dismantling your ego, or judging your ego, or trying to get rid of it, it's like trying to get rid of your left hand. Okay, it is there. It is literally the tool that helps you navigate this 3D world. So there's no way that you could get rid of it. The important thing is to not let it be in the driving seat, to let it be the car, let it be the vehicle, let it be the tool, that helps you navigate the world, this 3D world, but not to be completely identified with it, where you believe every single thought that you have, and every single thing that you've been conditioned with, or that you think is part of your personality. And so, yes, I have an ego. And since my last ego death, it was difficult. I had to mourn that identity. And then I started to get a lot of resistance to theology and to worship music, and I just needed to push everything away. And I noticed that sometimes you need to, when we're balancing things out, it's almost like we go the complete opposite extreme just to come into balance. Or maybe that's just my own personal experience. I mean, I don't know if you believe in zodiac signs. I believe there's definitely something to it. And I'm a Gemini. So I have two two people in me, right? Two personalities. And so for that reason, or whatever it is, I do experience this dichotomy within me where I can be very extreme. So when I tell you that I was like, trying to dissolve my ego, I mean, I was wearing all white. I had like a white shawl or like a scarf around my face. No, absolutely no like animal products, no alcohol, no drugs. Well, obviously, but you know what I mean. Nothing like not watching anything that was negative, stuff like that. So it was very extreme. I mean, I wouldn't even put makeup on, hair products, anything. I was really trying to like kind of decode the matrix in a sense. So yeah. So back to the higher self. The more and more that I grow, the more that I realize that the higher self, besides it not being the like most successful version of you, the higher self is really just your inner being. It's like this connection to your inner beingness. It's this deep wisdom within you. And so this podcast, this episode, is about not only helping you understand what the higher self is, but how to master it. And so again, the higher self is the part of you that is not conditioned. It is the part of you that is eternal. It is the part of you that has never been hurt or damaged by anything in this world, because it is not of this world. It is not finite. It is not a personality. The body that you are in, the persona that you are, eventually will die. But the higher self, which can also be the soul self, the spirit self, is eternal. And the more that we can come into our center, open up our heart, which is where our intuition is, where the higher self resides, we can start to tap into this higher wisdom, this higher knowledge, and it could guide us in our lives. And so how do we master that? Well, how do you master playing the piano? How do you master, if you're an artist, how do you master cooking? You practice. You practice over and over and over again until you don't even need to think about it. It's automatic. Well, that's how we master the higher self. We practice connecting with the higher self. We practice allowing ourselves to be led by the higher self. We practice getting to know the higher self, spending time with the higher self, and accessing that intuition, that wisdom, that inner knowing so much that it becomes second nature. It just becomes automatic. And so the more that you are able to connect to the higher self, the same way that, in my practice, in my coaching practice, I teach a lot on subpersonalities, right? And that's like a whole other podcast episode. But the same way you have a subpersonality within you, like let's say you have two extremes within you. Let's say that you are very confident at times, yet very, very insecure at other times or for other things. Usually the polarity, the dichotomy within us shows us that there's a part of us that is aligned to our truth, but then there's a aspect of our personality that has been conditioned in us that is the opposite. And this aspect of our personality, if you feed it enough with your thoughts, your words, your behaviors especially, then that aspect gets larger and larger until it becomes not just an aspect of your personality, but an actual sub-personality altogether. A completely different person with a different set of values and beliefs and motives and fears. Okay? Well, the higher self is similar. I mean, it's helpful to look at the higher self as a sub-personality as well. The only thing is here is that the higher self is the true self. Okay? So start to get to know your higher self. And one of the ways that you can do this is by journaling. I also do another exercise with clients. And if you ever come to one of my seminars, Higher Self Mastery, I do seminars, 3-day, super transformative seminars. I have one in October coming up in Miami, Florida, in person, if you're interested. In that event, I show you live, okay, using someone as a demonstration of how to tap into the higher self, where you actually can speak from the place of the higher self. And it's amazing, really, honestly, to watch someone who, for example, has a question or, feels some kind of fear or has some kind of pain and ask the higher self for advice or what to do. And the same person with this question of like, should I stay with my boyfriend? And it feels so confused, so overwhelmed. When I have her connect to the higher self and channel the higher self takes over, and it's like a completely different person and can answer the question from a place of power. I mean, it's amazing to see it. And so I can train you to do this. But for now, I suggest journaling. And I know it's like, oh God, if I hear journaling one more time, I know. But what you do is you just grab a pen and a paper and you ask the question from the lower self, right? From the mind, right? The 3D self, the personality self. You ask, what should I do for my career? Or, should I talk to this person? Whatever it is. And then you take a deep breath. You let it go. You put your shoulders back. You can practice them now. Put your shoulders back. Okay. Chest out. Breathe deeply. Kind of like this superhero stance. Okay. And connect to the part of you that is totally in their power. The part of you that already knows. The part of you that lacks absolutely nothing. It already has it. It already is it. And it sees all experiences as useful. All that it does is it basically assesses all the incoming data from a neutral place. It's extremely wise. Okay? This is the higher self. As you connect to the higher self and you allow the higher self to take over your consciousness, you grab the pen and paper and you respond. You will not know what you're going to respond, or you might feel your lower self beginning to try to respond. But when you grab that pen and paper and say, higher self activate, higher self respond, and you start to just write it out, it will be so automatic, like automatic writing, that you won't even know what's going to come out next. And most of the time what you get is something that you could have never thought of. And that's how you know you just accessed the higher self or this higher wisdom. Okay. So the more that you get to the more that you practice this is just the first exercise that I'm going to give you. But the more that you get to practice this, the better that you will become at accessing your intuition and accessing the higher self. Okay. You can also get to know the higher self. So You could email me, okay? Go to my website, ericaenriquez.com, or you can email me support@ericaenriquez.com, and I will send you a PDF of questions that you could ask your higher self. So the same way you connect to the higher self, to the part of you that has never been damaged, that is eternal, that is totally in their power. You say this to like activate the higher self, to start getting into that state. And then you ask the questions, what do you like? Who are you? What is your highest path for my life? What do you like to wear? How do you like to dress? What do you like to eat? What do you like to do for fun? What are your passions? What is your mission? And you start to get to know the higher self. And you could also access this information by asking, when you're going to do something, you say, what would my higher self do? So, like, let's say you're going to eat something and you don't know what to eat. What would my higher self eat? Let's say that you're going to get dressed in the morning and you don't know what to wear. What would my higher self wear? Let's say you're going to go on a date, or maybe you don't know if you should go on a follow-up date with someone and you're kind of confused about it. What would my higher self do? Would they go on a date with this person? The more that you ask that question, the more that you respond and you behave in a way that is in alignment with the higher self, and the more that you develop this relationship, the stronger the higher self gets. Okay? So, why do we want to be connected to the higher self? Because the lower self, the lower egoic mind that is the conditioned self, only sees 1% of the picture. They're very limited. And because they're deeply programmed, deeply conditioned, they don't always know what is the highest choice. The 3D self, the lower self, the egoic self, it basically fuels off of separation, competition, judgment, fear. Why? Because the egoic self, or the lower self, wants to make sure that it survives like everything else in the wild, including, the animals. It wants to ensure its survival. And so it perpetuates separation, because ultimately in the world of duality is fueled by separation. Because if we went back home to source, to non-duality, everything is one. And that's back to the paradox, right? Because in truth, everything is one. In truth, we're all like drops in the ocean, but we're all the ocean, right? And this is higher self knowledge. This is, right, higher self wisdom. But the egoic self perpetuates itself, ensures its survival through separation. And nothing fuels separation like judgment, like competition, like fear. The more that you see yourself separate from another, the stronger the egoic mind is. And so because the egoic mind is so limited, we want to make sure that we're using the ego as a tool to help us navigate this world, to keep us safe, right? But not that it's driving us where we are feeding into separation. We are feeding into discord, disharmony, judgment, jealousy, competition, fear. Ultimately, the higher self is ultimate love. Okay? So this is why we want to be led by the higher self, so connected to the higher self until we can't even tell the difference. to transcend the lower self, which is that not what the Master Jesus came to show us? To transcend. And honestly, that's what I believe we're all here to do. I believe there's 8 billion angels on this planet. I believe that we are all angels in disguise, all here playing our parts to transcend the collective consciousness. And we do that by transcending our own consciousness, by being able to be in the realm of duality, but hold the truth, know the truth. We can play the game of non-duality. We can play the game of the human experience where love is the ultimate prize, but not forgetting that we are love. Because if we don't know that we are love, we'll be seeking it out in all the wrong people and all the wrong places. When if we can just remember that we are love, then simply we'd no longer look for it, search for it, try to capture it or attach ourselves to it. We simply give it, express it, because we are it. It's our nature. And so the more that we could do this, what I teach is unity consciousness, to see everyone as an aspect of you, as a part of you. And so the more that we are connected to our higher selves, to our inner being, to our inner knowing, our inner wisdom, the part of us that is always in peace, always in their power, we transcend. So this is my invitation to you with this podcast. And thank you for being here with me. Let's see, how long has it been? 28 minutes. I think this is my first episode, and I think I'm going to begin 30-minute episodes, maybe 25-minute episodes, because we're all busy and we all have a lot of things on our plate, I know. But if you can listen to this when you drive, listen to it in the morning, it's just a pointer to truth in a way that is easy to understand by most people. Okay, so if you are here with me, thank you. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for listening to the end. Thank you for being the light of the world. Thank you for what you are doing for the collective, for your bloodline. I see you. I see who you really are. In Avatar, they never said, the movie Avatar, they never once said, I love you. They say, I see you. And I see you. God bless you. See you next time.